Welcome to the Innovation Conversation, a podcast about innovators, both in business and real life. Hosted by myself, Ricardo Pascual, and Harry McDonough. This podcast is also sponsored by ODEF Tech. ODEF Tech is your premier software development partner. Make sure you check them out at odev.tech. The podcast is also sponsored by Notion.so. Notion is offering 6 months for free for new users. Make sure you check out our website, thestartupevents.co.uk, to redeem this offer.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Innovation Conversation. Today we are joined by Chet Hirani. Chet, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, man. Thank you so much.
Chet, would you like to introduce yourself to the audience, please?
Yeah, no worries. Okay, so obviously, Ricardo just said I'm Chet Hirani. I'm an executive performance coach, TEDx speaker, and the founder of Not Your Ordinary Coach, which is a performance coach company. And the missions there is just straight talking, shaping senior management into being nothing but leaders, and helping businesses to sort of outperform and also grow from failure to achieving 10x results, all from a performance-related aspect of things.
So this is actually quite key, because of all the startups I talk to, there's always an evolution of the person leading the company, right? They become when they start, there's someone winning with an idea and then transform into a leader. They need to lead people either to believe into that idea, but also, building the teams and stuff around them. So what tips and advice can you give? And I'm sure you have a lot of tips and advice to give someone like just starting out, but let's say a young founder just started his own company. What tips and advice would you give him?
The ultimate tip and advice, and it might sound sort of very cliche when it comes to this, right, is the first things first is to build the foundation. Okay. And then people then ask, what is the foundation? And I kind of like give the analogy of a foundation in terms of, just imagine you're sort of building a house or something like that, right? You need to basically have a solid, steady foundation, because if you don't, what's going to appear? Cracks will appear. It gets wider, it gets bigger, you fall through them, and it's hard to sort of get back out of them as well. Yeah. But we all know in foundations as well, cracks do appear. It's not as if you're going to have a solid foundation where it's just going to be completely nice and smooth in that respect. But when those do appear, it's how to be in control of those in order to sort of mend them and then continue building. The main aspect of things when I talk about the foundation in anything, especially for entrepreneurs, is that, look, we're all entrepreneurs in some shape or form. We're all risk takers. You're not an entrepreneur if you don't take risks. Yeah, especially in the startup world as well. But when I talk about the foundation, the main foundation is your health, believe it or not. It's nothing even to do with the business. Okay, because you need to be around first. You need to make sure that you are at your optimal levels at a continuous basis. You need to be able to be in control of yourself as well as everything else that's going around you, in order for you to sort of get closer to that vision of your own success as well. So it's really, really important. And I say that, and then people think that, oh, well, that's easier said than done. But if you kind of put yourself first, as well as your ideas of your startup companies, how on earth is anything going to actually work if you're not present? Yeah. So you need to be continuously present through everything. Yes, there's going to be highs and lows, but when there are highs and lows, we want to make sure that we're in control of it as much as we possibly can, in order to continue where our vision is. Because startups, entrepreneurs, we're all visionaries in that respect. Okay. And we've all got this goal that we want to kind of effectively hit. But rather than looking into that future distance and running too far ahead to say, okay, I want to hit that sort of goal and get to that goal, you've got to also understand everything else that needs to be done in order to achieve it. What small steps do I need to take? And too often people don't actually think about those things. And again, in the startup world as well, one of the major factors is obviously investment. We want to basically look for investors, get that capital coming in. But when that does come in, you see too many zeros and get excited, because you've never seen that much money before. And how you use those, how you utilize all of those is an important thing, which then leads me on to my next piece of advice on that is the two things that startups should actually focus on initially. And we've all seen some of the most successful startups and now unicorn companies in the world, right? Okay. The two most important things is your marketing and investing in a coach. Those are the two things. And we've spoken about that before as well.
Yeah.
And those are the two things that I always recommend. And I say to startups, whenever they ask me, what are things that you'd recommend or suggest that we do in order for us to move forward? It's like, yeah, one is you've got to seek your investment. That's a continuous process. But the other thing that you need to do for yourself is, how are you going to position yourself? How are you going to market yourself? Invest in those sort of areas. But then if you're not sure about all of those sort of areas, invest in the right type of coach to help you get to those sort of levels. That's fundamentally what I would always say to everyone.
And how do you deal with the guilt? And the guilt, what I mean by this is, you're building something, and the more hours you put into it, the better the outcome, or possibly the better the outcome is going to be. But how do you deal with the guilt of saying, you know what, I need to take a break. I need to actually focus on myself, on my health. I need to focus on getting my energy levels back to where they should be, instead of running to zero every single day.
Right.
So how do you deal with that? Because there's a internal dialogue, right?
That's a great question. Again, one thing that I like doing, and the way I operate with my sort of coaching world, is you got to make things as simple as possible. Okay. The more you make things harder for yourself, it just becomes harder to do anything else, right? You complicate matters. Everything just becomes complicated. It's like, why the hell do people do that to themselves? That's one of the big things. But the reason why they do that to themselves, because they don't know how to, again, be in control of those situations. To answer your question from the guilt perspective, is now you got to just think, right? It's a case of, I need to be present. I need to be here continuously. Why on earth does it take for someone to say, oh, you've been diagnosed with a life-threatening disease or something like that, in order for you then to take action about yourself? Because whenever we get told, I've been in situations where I've known people who have been diagnosed with things, and then they've then decided, right, now I need to live life. Now I need to do something about my health and do all those sort of things. Why does it take us to get to that stage when we could have just done everything beforehand to never, ever be given that sort of diagnosis, right? And the classic ones, I'm not talking about the cancers of the world or anything. I'm talking about things like high blood pressure, high cholesterol, all these sort of things, because these are common things in human beings. And when you burn out, all of those things elevate as well. Okay, because we're not looking after, so we're not eating right, we're not sleeping right, we're not doing anything. But why on earth do we have to get to that stage then to age ourselves like 5 to 10 years ahead of what we constantly are? Take control of it, focus on those. And that's when I say, to answer the third question about the guilt side of things, it's, you got to take a step back. Everything will work out. You just got to take a step back more often than not, and more times than you realize. You need to actually take more steps back just to see it from a different place. Yes, I know sometimes, and I am completely guilty of this too. I used to be reactive in everything I did. When I started, all these ideas just flow through your head. Okay, we know that. Okay, when you start, I mean, your mind's traveling 101 miles or 200 miles an hour. Okay, but you end up doing something, and then something else pops up. You stop doing that, and then you do this. It just happens. Okay, and then the next minute you know is that you spent about 8 hours and you've actually not achieved anything. Yeah, right. But then taking a step back and then making yourself realize, okay, these ideas are going to pop up. Great thing. Make a note of them, jot them down, put them to the side for now. Take a step back and think, is this a priority for me to do now, or was what I was doing a priority? Recalibrate yourself. That's all I'm talking about when we're taking step backs. I'm not saying take a nap or anything like that. If you need to take a nap. But when I was doing all of those sort of things, I kept like thinking, for example, I write sort of like lots of content and things like that for my business, just to generate visibility. I do all of these sort of things, and all of a sudden an idea pops up. Okay, that I need to now create an email newsletter to send out to my subscribers. And I'm like, well, hold on a minute. Why did I just complete that and then do this? Because that's not gonna. Nothing's gonna change. Okay, if one thing's done maybe an hour later or maybe 24 hours later. If it's detrimental to a fact that it's contractual, there's a monetary transaction happening, then there's a different conversation we need to have, based on the fact that then why were you doing the content side of things? Why weren't you doing what mattered to make sure that your business elevates and exceeds and gets more money coming in? All these sort of things, okay, play a huge part in the fact that when we're starting up, we all go through it. People, and it's another one of the reasons why they say, and that statistics of there is that I can't remember the statistic now, is that most startups fail. And but my question is, have they actually failed? Okay. What can you learn? What can you take out of that didn't go so well? So rather than calling it failure, find something positive out of it. What did you learn? So next time I'm not going to do that. And if you're an entrepreneur and you're a startup, you're not just going to sit there. You're going to find something else to do because there's a reason why you took that risk in the first place. So why not continue taking that risk?
And how do you balance your ego in all these things? Because there's always a find that balance between balancing your ego, being lazy, but also being productive.
Yeah.
So that I think, I for one sometimes struggle with that, which is, what, I'm going to take a break. But then my ego says, oh, you can afford this. But then my guilt, I guess, says you can't. So you need to continue working. And how do you balance that ego, and how do you know you've struck the right chord?
Yeah. So when people talk about ego, there's two different elements to ego. Okay. There's one where you ego and you think you know it all, and there's one where it's ego is like, well, you're being hard on yourself. Two different aspects of it. Now, the one that we're talking about being hard on yourself for now is the fact that this is where the right people, network, surroundings help you. I didn't have anything when I first started. This is why I now preach to people to say, get the right mentors, get the right coaches in place to help you do all of these sort of things. You don't have to spend thousands of pounds to get all of these. There are people out there willing to give you this advice for nothing. But when you're able to sort of then invest in it, then it's going to take you to the next level. That's what the investment is. But in order to sort of, from an ego perspective, and that is surrounding yourself with the right people is the key here. Now, when I say I didn't have anyone, I basically had my wife, right? She's one person that's always sort of been there to say, right, she keeps me in check. Now, I'm very, very fortunate in that respect, okay? But there's definitely going to be someone in your life that's going to be able to do that for you, right? And that's up to you whether you're going to reach out to them or not, okay? It all starts with you. Everything else, when we're talking about your ego, or when you're saying, I can't do this, I can't do that, what you'll end up doing is you'll end up blaming others for your own mistakes as well. Okay. But the reminder of it is everything that you do, everything that doesn't work out, there's only one person to blame. There's only one person at fault, and it's always going to be you. Okay. Because there's something that you've probably not done.
I'm thinking about one thing, which is, how do you finally start believing in yourself and having confidence in yourself? Because when you're launching a business, it's incredibly hard, right?
Yeah.
You have an idea, you kind of do a little bit of baby steps around it, and then something happens.
Yeah.
But how do you finally believe in yourself to the point you say, you know what, I can do this. I'm going to keep on pushing until I achieve what I set out to achieve.
Again, I love those sort of questions. You're always going to doubt yourself. It's okay to doubt yourself. Yeah. Okay. But it's also reminding yourself of what you've actually achieved. And when you do all those sort of things of what you've actually achieved, taking a step back again, what I was saying, right, and then looking at what you've actually achieved, that is going to build your confidence. That all of those sort of things are going to build. Even till this day, myself, I always say to me, I've got nothing to show for it. I say that because I want more. Everybody wants more. It depends how driven you are in that respect. Okay. So when I say I've not achieved anything and I've got nothing to show for it, I want more, I get reminded by the people around me to say, well, look at what you've just achieved. Look at everything that you've been doing. We need reassurance. It's human nature to continuously get that reassurance. And I'm not talking about constantly getting a pat on the back, right? Because those sort of things, pats on the back, no. Because otherwise you're not going to move forward. You're going to be asking, oh, can you please say that I'm great, I'm good constantly to help me move forward? No, that's not how I'm operating here. I'm saying reassurance about reminding you about what you've done, what you're doing, what's working, what's not working, to help you build confidence. Where were you from the day you started to what you're doing now, for example? Like the smallest little things. When people don't even know how to kind of like write a newsletter or write a piece of content or something like that, right? You all have to start somewhere. And then when you continue doing that, obviously things are going to get better. Okay. Driving a car. You never knew how to drive a car when we were younger, riding a bike, all those sort of things. The more you do things, it's going to build your confidence, but it's reminding yourself of how you do it. But our brains, the way we operate, we neglect ourselves far too often and far too much, which is one of the reasons why it's important to be reminded and have that reassurance. But the other side of things as well in this is that when we're doing things, especially as startups and entrepreneurs, right? When you're doing things, never expect anything in return. Okay? Because when that return comes when you least expect it, and that's the reward that you've worked your ass off to get to that point, right? Okay? That's the best feeling ever. Yeah. And I
Yeah.
give you an example, like, and this is the vision that we basically put ourselves forward for, right? And where we think, I didn't know that I was gonna, so my businesses have been pretty well structured in terms of just of late that I've now been able to sort of break into the Middle East market. Now, for one whole year, I kept saying to myself that I'm going to break into this market. I need to work. I need to do all of these sort of things. Okay. And then the tail end of last year, I was away in the Middle East for a whole month. Right. And I was delivering pieces of work to like this major bank over there. And it got me to take that moment to step back. And even while I was speaking to the attendees, to say, you know what, there's a reason why I'm here, is because I said that I'm going to be here. Again, when you remind yourselves those are things, can you imagine the confidence that basically comes? I didn't need nobody to tell me that. Okay. It's when you start believing in yourself far more. And again, when I say these things about believing in yourself, we hear it all the time. Okay. It is important. But it's also important as startups and entrepreneurs is the fact that, yeah, you believe in yourself, but you know what? There's always more. There's more. Hence why being a performance coach is getting the best out of people, is getting the best out of yourself. It's such an important factor.
So do you think people should actually take control of their own narrative? Because
Yeah.
I find that a lot of people, actually, a good example of this is if you read any success story, let's say on Daily Mail,
Mm-hmm.
they always start with the lowest paid position that person ever had. And
Yeah.
always say, former lifeguard, former, I don't know, house cleaner is now a millionaire.
Yeah.
And I don't know why they have to say that they started off in that place, because that kind of, I guess, takes them down a notch, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But when we're telling our own story, we never say, oh, I started as a house cleaner. We always say, I'm a successful entrepreneur because of A, B, and C.
Yeah.
So is that a key element here, which is taking control of your own narrative, writing your own story, and telling people that story?
Yeah. Taking control of your narrative, be humble about those sort of things. Be open, share it. Okay. We often, like you just said, how many times do we see people's success stories continuously? Yeah. Right. But nobody actually really tells us how they got there and what they did. That's what we want to know.
Mhm.
Yeah. So teach us that. Tell us, what pain did you have to go through in order for you to be where you are? And that's an important thing. When we say pain is like a weakness, it's not a weakness, it's a strength, right? To basically say, right, I've gone through this. I've been able to elevate myself. I've been able to take things to the next level, but this is all done through the hard work of me, the people around me, what I've learned, the challenges, the obstacles that I've basically gone through, all of these sort of things. I want to know all of these sort of things for me to look up to you and say, look, I don't want to emulate you, but I want to take some inspiration from you, because I know that if that's the case, I'm going to get this. And I know it's hard. It's hard. The life of an entrepreneur in a startup is damn hard. Yeah. And that's the truth. Okay. But the thing is, we always see, oh, we've got all these great people out there in the world that have done sort of fantastic work and their businesses are thriving. All these sort of things are happening. Some of them are very fortunate that they come from backgrounds where they've got heavily funded people in there and people have invested in them. They're very fortunate. But most of the people aren't that fortunate. They've got to work. They've got to graft to actually get to these places. So there's a different level of things here. Okay. Mm-hmm. But the fundamental thing of it all is that they've all taken care of themselves. Somebody's helped them take care of the foundation in order for all of this to sort of develop on, because they wouldn't have been able to do it. We look at, I mean, the companies that keep coming to my mind when I'm talking about this is like the Ubers, the Facebooks, the Amazons, the Googles. They're all case studies now, yeah, because they're doing fantastic. Mm-hmm. But there are companies out there that are going to reach to that level. There's going to be another cycle where there's going to be a handful of companies that are going to reach to that status. Yeah. Okay, and but they're working at the moment. Nobody needs to know who they are or anything right now, because they're going to go through different changes. They may have started up with one name of the company and end up being another name after like 10 iteratives or something like that, right? Okay, but that will happen. But when that happens, we all who are building and wanting to get to those sort of stages, or on that sort of same journey, should I say, we all want to understand and know is that, okay, what has it taken? How have you done it? And that's one of the reasons I tell people, especially like people who want to start a business or anything, I said, it's great. I would force everyone to start something of their own. Okay, I would force that. For some people, it's not. For some people, it's a good thing, right? Some people like to go into work and just focus on those Good on you. It's not an issue. There's nothing wrong with you there. But the people that want to do it, it's a case of, right, I'm asking, you're coming up to me now and say you really want to start something of your own. Even before they've started, I have to question them to say, do you really, really want to do this? What is it that you really want to do? Why do you want to do all the things? And ask questions that they've not been asked. Okay. And I'm not talking about asking your parents or asking family members, because they're going to give you they're going to give you different answers, right? You ask your parents, right? If I ask my parents, right, when I started mine, they'd be like, oh, why do you want to do something like that? Why don't you invest your money here? Why don't you do this? That's the standard thing. Because the reason why they're saying that, because they're looking out for me.
They don't want you to risk and don't want you to suffer because they
Yeah.
see that journey as suffering, and they want you to take the safe path, not the risky path.
Exactly. So that's what your close friends and family are going to say, or you're going to get a few other friends and family who are going to turn down on you, look at you, and think, really, you're not going to make this. Why are you doing this? I get this still daily. Yeah, even now, 10 to 15 years on, I still get it. Right. But then I'm thinking, well, and one thing I always say to them, and I stay true hand to heart, I say, I went, look, one day, yeah, Chet will be famous and you're going to remember this. I say it all the time. Okay. Because that's the belief that I have. And if I've got that belief, then everybody else should have that belief that's coming on this whole journey as well. Why shouldn't they?
Exactly. You got to see it before it's happening or before it actually becomes a reality. And I feel that every entrepreneur is a bit like an architect in the sense that they design the place, they think how it's going to look like, and they need to put that to paper, and then from that paper on, it becomes reality. But unless you have the vision to envision it in the first place, it's never going to happen, is it?
Exactly.
And it's really hard to do that as well, because you're going to go, okay, should I build a wall or this side of the business here? Should I put the roof one way or the other way? So there's a bit of a learning curve there, but it's your own, I guess, I'm not going to say destiny, but it's who you are as an individual, isn't it? It's just, some people are built to build, I guess, and they want to do more and more stuff.
Yeah. It's interesting when you say that, because we all kind of like follow, or when I say we all follow, there's almost like this unwritten rule that's there, right? You've got to do this, you've got to do this, you've got to do this in life, okay, right? But there are a certain handful of people, and I would probably call them like the top 1% or something. But like, you know what? No, I'm going to take a different path to this. I'm not going to do what I've been socially told to do. I'm going to take a different. And those are the people that stand out. Those are the people that know that there's more to them and there's more for them to give in different ways, right? And it's also not difficult to actually get into that sort of that percentage either. It's just being educated and told, but then you've got to feel it, want it within yourself too, and then okay, I'm now hearing that this is the way you need to operate. No, you operate the way you got to feel that you need to operate as well.
Something happens that I found that actually happened quite a few times in my life, which is you're going down a certain path and you know for a fact that's not the path you want to be in, right? So you just get frustrated, you get angry, you want to move away from that path, but you still need to be there for the time being, right? And how do you strike that balance of I'm getting some feedback, I'm learning something here, but at the same time I'm still not where I want to be? And how do you, I guess, pull yourself back from that low moment onwards to something else? Because it's really hard to have everyone saying this is not for you, or you're doing something wrong, or you feel a bit like a loser, but you have more to it. So how do you balance that out?
So I'm currently in the process of first drafting my book, and there's a chapter in that which talks about the art of self-assessment and self-awareness. And that's where it all sort of boils down to. Okay, because if you're not able to self-assess yourself, you're not able to be aware of yourself either. Okay, and this is a huge learning thing for everyone. Basically, should be doing, rather than being told that this is what you need to be doing. So, I'll give you an example here as well. That a few years ago, I decided, and I had this bright idea that I want to create a mastermind. My coaching business was going through. I was like, I'm going to create a mastermind. I'm going to charge premium prices, and everything was just looking so good. So it was so easy to sort of like build and develop. I did all the research and everything like that. Okay. So that was another path. That was another sort of project that I was working on, which was completely separate to my main business. Now, my main business was working well, so I kind of then focused on another area. And while I was doing all those sort of areas, my main business started to become neglected because I wasn't actually focusing on that part. And then I didn't even realize that there was a decline in sort of investments coming in or clients coming in and all these sort of things, because I was focused on this mastermind and then realizing, hold on a minute, there's nothing coming in here. I'm getting things which doesn't even pay the bills in that respect. But I was so blindsided into doing all of those. And that's when I realized that I needed to start asking myself questions again. When I started asking myself questions and learning about myself more, assessing my situations of where I am, not in terms of where I am from a bank balance perspective, but where I am from my company perspective, okay? Which directions do I need to go in? And then the question was that, hey, I need to stop this. And I was working with somebody on it. I ended up finding that I was putting far more effort and work into this than the other person was, because I was the more of the technical aspect of things, okay? But I was thinking, well, there's no monetary, there's nothing coming through. I'm not even that the vision, all of these things were like being, I was sharing all the content to build people up, to bring them in, and no one was interested in it, which is one thing that I realized. Again, this is something, again, coming into sort of the business aspect of things. When you have something that you think, you generally think that is the best idea on the planet, it's the best idea on the planet for you, but it might not necessarily be the best idea on the planet for people out there. And if it's not, then you need to reassess yourself as well. It's something that I've learned too, right? Is that you need to reassess it. Nobody wants this, so then why are you bothered? Why do you keep on at this?
Exactly.
Okay. Now there's a point where people can argue. There's that, but what about the when you talk about the word consistency, to keep on pushing, keep on going? But there's still assessments required within those, okay? Because you need to then think, are you actually solving somebody's problem? And if you're not solving someone's problem and you're just solving a problem for yourself, that's not going to work for anybody else, right?
So this is actually quite interesting, because I'm thinking about two. First of all, something that Henry Ford said, and something that I read in the book. So Matthew McConaughey, the actor, wrote a book called Green Light. I don't know if you read it yet, but he goes about how life sometimes gives you some green lights, which is like go go go, you're in the right direction. Sometimes it's a yellow light, which means you know what, it's not really the right path. And then you have a red one, which just says stop, move, you're completely on the wrong direction here. But then at the same time, I'm thinking about Henry Ford, who once said, if I ask people what they wanted, they would say they want more horses instead of a car. So how do you strike that balance between, is this a red light, or am I building a car instead of a better carriage? So how do you manage that? Because that's quite hard to find out.
It is a hard one. And I came across something just quite recently on that, is that, look, when you are trying to find something or do something for people, you need to go out and speak to people, first of all, right? You need to go out and ask them, what do they want? And if you ask them what they want, you've got an idea, okay? Then you need to ask, but that's not necessarily what everybody wants. So when you've got a few selections of people, what they want, you've got a few ideas here. But then you need to then ask these other questions, okay? Which is almost like a sales technique questions, right? You need to basically get as many yeses as you possibly can, like get about 3 yeses, okay? And when you get to the 4th and 5th yes, you know that that's exactly what they want and they're going to purchase it. It's the type of questions that you ask them. Right. So let's say, for example, you're in a specific country or something, and you say, oh, you're in this country. Like, let's take, you're in the UK, for example. You're in the UK, they'll say yes. Okay. All right. And then they'll say, what, where you ask them, like, what have you done in a specific part of the UK? They'll tell you, and then they'll say, did you enjoy it, or what didn't you do, and all that sort of, they'll say yes again. Then you keep on getting the yeses. And the psychological aspect of things, it doesn't have to do anything to do with your product. Okay. But as soon as you get the yeses, you can then ask them these questions like, oh, so what about this? Would you consider this based on everything else people have basically, the information that you got from other people? Chances are they'll say yes. If they say maybe, it's easier to turn that into a yes as well, because they haven't said no straight away. So there's a lot of psychology behind the way the mind works and how you can actually, again, look, it is manipulation. I'm not going to lie, but it's how you're doing it the right way.
I always heard that the quality of the questions you ask determines the quality of your life.
Yeah.
In the sense that if you keep on asking the wrong questions, you keep on getting the bad results that you don't want in your life, right?
Exactly. But the bad questions are generally the bad questions generally are questions which have got nothing to do with the person. The questions that you want to ask is about the person. You want to make everything about them. Okay. Yeah. And when you make everything about them, you are building a relationship. They're beginning to like you because they were like, hey, this person is actually interested in me. You're asking them questions that people probably have not asked them on a regular basis. Okay. And when you do that, you're building all of these sort of things with them. It doesn't have to turn into a investment or a sale or anything like that. You've built a relationship. So then now you're on the top of their list. You're on their mind straight away. And when the time comes for something, they will reach out to you in that. And this is where, again, we all know the term of planting seeds comes in, right? That is planting seeds to the optimum point. Making it about the individuals, finding something in common with the individual. It can be anything. It can be you like the same color. It could be you have a child or something like that. But when you like, for example, when you say you have a child and this guy, oh, so do I, then you can say, oh, so how old is yours? You never say mine is this. You say, so how old is yours? Then you can gauge to say, okay, if your child is 5 years old, mine is 10 years old, you can then relate more to them as well to say, oh, I remember how are things as a 5-year-old. It could be quite tough. Never refer to yours. Always make it about them still.
It's a good technique.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, I meet a lot of entrepreneurs going through some really dark moments, right? What would you tell someone going through a dark moment when they're building their business? What's that one thing you'd say? Obviously, there's multiple things you could say, but what's that one thing you'd say, you know what, it's going to get better? What would that be?
Okay. The one thing that I would say with those sort of things, and I say it quite often, is that nothing is always, nothing is negative. Okay. You can always find a positive in a negative. Yeah. So if they're going through a dark moment, it's like, so what can you take away from all this? What good's happened? Okay. And that's basically what we want to do. We want to train the brain to, rather than focusing on that negative emotion, is to start thinking about the good side of things that's been happening, which then will counteract all the negative sides. And that's how I always work with people. Again, it's I'm referring back to our mind, and there's a great book that basically I would recommend to people. It's called The Laws of Human Nature. Okay, it's by Robert Greene. These books, right, and that book says the similar sort of things. Okay, but then always think about, if I'm constantly thinking negative, then damn, all the negative shit's going to keep coming to me. What can I change? And yes, it is about the way you transmit your energy, your frequency, all these sort of things. I'm a big believer in all those sort of things. But we're all gonna. I go through it. I go through dark moments, but I go through less dark moments than I went through before. Okay, and it's how I handle it. There's moments when I have my dark moments, Ricardo. I will literally say, okay, right, I'm going to put down tools and I'm just going to basically sit and watch Netflix shows for a little while.
Yeah, that works for most people, actually.
Yeah, right? And there's nothing wrong with that, because when they say you're not being productive, you are actually being productive to a certain level, not high productivity levels, but you're definitely not doing nothing. You're still being productive in some way. So even when you're watching a show or something like that, your brain is still thinking about something else too.
It is, yeah.
Okay? Right? So then that's a good thing for you. So what did you learn from it? It's like, okay, I learned to stay calm. I learned to basically step away from things. I learned that although, sorry, excuse my French here, that shit's hitting the fan. I'm in a dark moment currently at the moment. It's like, well, I don't want to sit here all this time because I'm not going to get nowhere. No one's going to freaking help me. Yeah. I need to help myself.
That's ultimately the thing, isn't it? You need to help yourself.
Yeah.
There's it's not going to be a cavalry coming in. There's no, a higher power is not going to come in and help you. You need to help yourself. Yeah. And then things start happening. But you do the first step, and maybe the second, and then the third, and maybe 100 steps all by yourself, and then something else happens, right? Yeah, it's now focusing on books. You've recommended a book that I literally have standing on top of my desk right now, and I'm also curious. You also recommend another book which I almost finished. What's it called? The OKR ones. Measure What Matters.
Yes, Measure What Matters. Yes,
yeah, brilliant book. Actually, taught me a lot about the story of Silicon Valley, how Google got started, but also how they managed to get to where they are right now. What other books have inspired you along your journey?
What other books? Oh gosh, I've got so many books. So one book that really has inspired me is one called Extreme Leadership.
Okay.
And I'm sure everyone knows about Extreme Leadership. It's by Jocko Wilks.
Yes.
That I mean, the reason why that's really helped me, and also I will link that to David Goggins' Can't Hurt Me, right? And the reason why that's helped me in that way, because my mindset, I wouldn't say my mindset is like them, but I would love for my mindset to be like them. But I don't think I'm far off having that sort of mindset, because I basically got my mindset through I got the I basically got the no bullshit attitude from my mum, and I got the people attitude from my dad. Right. So it's the perfect match in that respect, the way I see it. Okay. In terms of books in that respect, yeah, so Extreme Leadership, that's a great book. I mean, obviously it's all about the Navy SEALs, but then how they basically use everything they learned from the Navy SEALs perspective into real world perspectives from a leadership aspect of things. Yeah. So, and again, going back to the whole thing of like, at the end of the day, if you are leading somebody in any way, anything that goes wrong, you are accountable for it. It's your fault. It's not your team's fault. Okay, in that respect, there's that. Same thing with David Goggins, Can't Hurt Me. That's just been one that is a constant sort of reminder about what you can do.
Very powerful book and very powerful character as well. I mean, he keeps on
Absolutely.
pushing the
Yeah.
envelope.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it's like if you want to basically have somebody who's associated to Superman or something like that, he's probably high up there, right? In that respect. A few other books that I always get other people to sort of look at and go through. Like one of the first books I would say is The Compound Effect. Okay. So The Compound Effect is by Darren Hardy. And Obstacle is the Way is another book, which is by
Ryan Holiday.
Ryan Holiday, yeah. Those are some of the books there. But then after understanding those, because those are things which are those two books especially are quite sort of personal development type books, right? A lot of the things that when you read that book, you're thinking, well, I know this already. Okay, but then when you read it and when you question yourself, so why you know this already, is that so why are you continuously reading it then? Right? Okay, you got to question yourself in that respect. I've had so many people say that to me. It's like, oh, I know this already. I went, did you finish the book? It's like, yeah. I mean, so why did you finish the book then? Yeah, they have not got an answer to it. Okay, or they'll be like, oh, I just felt like finishing a book. I was like, but clearly you took something away. Even if it's just one paragraph you took away from that book, you've taken something. Yeah. And then you'd kind of work towards other books like Simon Sinek is a huge. I'm a fan of Simon Sinek. Start with Why is a really, really good book because that does teach you a lot about you and businesses as well. There's another book I've got at the back here. It's called Primal Leadership as well. Can't remember who it's from. There's a couple there. Relentless as well is a great book. Relentless by Tim Grover. So that was Tim Grover and Relentless. So Tim Grover is a huge fan of his as well. He was Michael Jordan's coach and then became Kobe Bryant's coach. So he would never become Kobe Bryant's coach if he was still Michael Jordan's coach. Okay, so Michael Jordan basically paid him to not coach anybody else, but just him.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's quite a career, hasn't he? So
yeah,
quite impressive.
So Relentless is a great book, and Tim Grover's got another book out as well. Oh gosh, I can't remember the name of that one. It's here somewhere, but it's the second book of Tim Grover's. But there's a. I mean, I've got a list of books that I can go through. Another book which is great for in terms of vision side of things, and it's also a Netflix show as well. And I would suggest this and recommend this to everyone. Is simply called The Secret. Yeah,
The Secret, but that's quite old, isn't it? It's like almost 30 years now.
Yeah,
30 years old. Yeah,
it's very, very old. There's a Netflix show on that one, and I always basically what I tend to do, and I think this was probably about a few years back. And you're probably going to think I'm crazy when I say I did this. I basically watched that, and I made sure that I watched that at least 3 to 4 times a week.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I watched it 3 to 4 times a week. Sat there and I just watched it just to make sure that everything was. I was retraining, programming myself in terms of my thoughts, my visions, all these sort of things. Then I got the book, and I was like, okay, the book is great, but I still like the show. Okay, and it was really important. Then I got the Audible, and then I just listened to the Audible at least once a month. That, even till now, just to remind myself of things. So that's like my go-to sort of reminder of certain things, and that's down to the way I believe and what I do. And I mean, I then do the same thing with my clients. It's just the same thing. So it's like if it works for me, why shouldn't it work for somebody else?
But don't you think it was obviously not anymore? But don't you think it was absolutely petrifying when you first started to listen to your inner voice and to your inner desires and to what do you actually want, and then making the first step to making that a reality? Because that's a scary moment, isn't it?
Hey man, I shit myself, honestly. It was hard. It was hard. I mean, I always knew that I wanted to do and go into this field of work. Now I've spent my background is in the corporate tech. So I've always known that I've always wanted to do something with people, but then elevations and all that. I just didn't know what it was. But then to take the step to do it, my wife gave me 12 months, right? And she said, okay, look, here's 12 months. I approached her once and I said, hey, I need to leave work. And she's like, what are you talking about? Right? And I was like, I need to start something of my own. I really cannot work for anybody. And she said, but we can't at the moment because financially we weren't stable.
Yeah.
And then I then said, fine, totally understand. I still worked in the background, did a bit of coaching, worked with some execs at work and all that. Then they started paying me outside of work. So it was a bit of a side hustle going on for me too. I wasn't certified in any way, but they basically said they again, this is going back to relationship building, trusting. When you have good relationships and you've got good trust, the certifications, the accreditations mean nothing. And they said the same thing to me. These were execs who have been around for a lot longer than I have, right? They were probably, 20, 30 years older than me. They said that they'll pay me outside of work because I help them. And that was like the step, think, my gosh, if I can do this, imagine what else I can do, right? And then I came out and then I said to my wife, yeah, look, right, this is the time. She said, okay, we're a little bit financially stable. It's not going to be easy, but I'll give you 12 months. Yeah. 10 years on, or more than that now. Okay. People say to me, will you ever retire? I said, no, I will never retire. I don't believe in retirement because I love what I do. I go, and then they said, why do you not believe in retirement? I said, well, retirement for me is that you stop doing something that you've been doing for a long time and then you move on to something else. So you retire one thing, but then you find something else to do. Okay, that's the way I see retirement as, because you obviously, when people have been working for like 20, 30 years into a company and then they retire, they're retiring from that company, but then they're still going to find, and then they'll say, oh, I want to do something that I've never done before or experience something. Well, that's exactly what you're doing. You're starting something else. Yeah, it was hard. The whole thing was hard and it is scary, honestly, but I wish it upon anybody that wants to do it. Yeah. But knowing that it's hey man, I don't like painting rose petal pictures or making things fluffy in any way. You just got to be real hard truth to say that, look, this is going to be a tough road. Okay, they're going to be. You're going to be falling off cliffs at some point, right? Yeah. But you know what? That cliff, you'll be able to stand back up. You're not going to fall flat and not be able to get back up, because there's only one time that will ever happen in your life when it ends, right? So don't think about that, right? Think about doing everything else.
Exactly. It's like people always say baby steps, but the reality about baby steps, and if I'm sure you have some memories of this, kids fail all the time when they're learning how to walk. Yeah. And they keep on failing day in, day out, but they keep on pushing because the desire to walk is much bigger than the desire not to walk. Yeah. And it's the same thing with our lives and our personalities and who we are. It's like, yeah, you're going to keep on falling and tumbling down, but you're going to pick yourself up and learn something every time you fall. Yeah. And that's okay. That's how you grow. That's part of life, right?
Yeah. I'd turn it into a game, right? I'd turn it into a game. Count how many times you fall, right? Exactly. Because then it becomes a story to tell. Right, I say to everyone, I say you are going to fall, but look, why don't you just count how many times you fall? And they're like, what do you mean? I went, yeah, you count how many times you fall, okay? Because then you'd be like, oh, shit, I fell again. Okay, now I get back up again. All right, that's fallen 10 times. Get back up on the 11th time. Right, you never know, that 11th opportunity could be just standing right there in front of your face when you stand up. All right.
There's this horrible, not horrible, but there's a guy called Brian Tracy, and I remember listening to his audiobooks on sales, right? Because I was background in sales, and he said something, when you're making cold calls, and cold calls are really hard, it's by the 50th that actually you're going to have a yes. Everything else is going to be a no. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I'm sure he can't be right. And then I start measuring it, and I realized that actually he's pretty accurate. Yeah. So when I was cold calling people, I was like, okay, 47, 48, 49. I'm getting very close to the yes that I actually need to hear. And my enthusiasm just built up. And I knew for a fact the first 20 or 30, they're going to be an absolute disaster. Had nothing to do with my skill set. Just had something, it is what it is. It's a numbers game in the end. But yeah, that kind of kept me motivated. But I was keeping track of things. I knew that something else was happening. It was something good. So
it is. Yeah. It's a good point that you put about that around saying, and it's quite accurate as well. It's like when you post a piece of content, you're not going to expect it to go viral straight away, right? And if it does, good on you, okay? But don't just sit on it, right? Because the next post you do probably won't go viral, right? So what do you got to keep doing? You got to keep working, be consistent. But that's when people talk about, oh, I'm not motivated enough. And I always say this as well, man, motivation does not last, Okay, I don't even use the word motivation, because you could go up, but your motivation was you will drop. Hands down, you will drop. Okay. And that's the truth of it all. Okay. But the thing is, what you do need is just basically need to make sure that you're disciplined enough to stay consistent. And that's all you need. Those two things to keep moving forward. Okay. And you maintain that. You have the right people around you to help you stay to that sort of level. You'll have a little dip, but you'll be able to get back up and maintain that level. And it's almost like having a flat line for a long time, right? Because when you're disciplined, you're consistent, you are going to have that increase. The graph's going to go up, but there's a higher chance of it going up than dropping down. So having that sort of mindset changes everything completely.
And I think, for example, like there was a couple times in my life where I would go to the gym every single day. And I realized I had really good days and really horrible days. And the horrible days I would go into the gym, I'll probably sit there for 10 minutes, but I would still go to the gym.
Yeah.
Right. And that all adds up. In the end, it all adds up and it helps you with the consistency. But most importantly, it helps with something else, which is even though you might not feel that you had a good workout that day, your brain says to you, you know what, you've achieved something.
Yeah.
You went out of the house, you went to the gym, and that's worth something.
Yeah.
And that something pushes you to the next day, and the next day is going to be great.
Yeah.
But you need to keep on pushing, right?
Yeah. Always remember how you'll feel after you've done it. Exactly that. Yeah. Yeah, it is hard. I mean, who likes going to the gym? I don't like going to the gym, but then you just got to think about how you're going to feel when you finish it. Okay. And the same thing in business as well. There are going to be moments that you're going to be like, oh, I really don't like doing this. But then you think, well, if I've got that one or two tasks that I've completed, how am I going to feel once I've done it? Okay. You can't see how further you've got, but you've actually taken that step further too, right? And that could lead to something else. Okay. And it's nothing is about, when we listen to the language, again, it's down to language as well of how you sort of basically speak, how your behavior is, how your characteristics to other people are, all these sort of things. It's never a case of I have to do anything. It's always I get to do it all. Yeah. So changing, and we hear it. I mean, some of the greatest people have said these same words. You never have to do anything. You get to do it all. You never have to wake up. You get to wake up. All those sort of things. Yeah. So it's important to keep that in your head. Remind yourself those small things.
Chet, as we're nearing the end of the podcast, if people want to reach out to you, how can they do so?
Yeah, so if you want to reach out to me, you can reach out to me directly. I mean, I'm on LinkedIn. I live on LinkedIn. So you can search me on Chet Hirani, which is just my first name, Chet, surname Hirani, Hirani, 2 words. I'm on LinkedIn there. I'm also on TikTok. I'm also on Instagram. So you could, and the same words, Chet Hirani. So just search those. Only one of me comes up, thankfully. Yeah, just reach out to me, DM me. Happy to ask any questions or anything. You can also go to chethirani.com as well and look at a few things there. I've got lots of free handouts that you can basically take for nothing. Everything's all there to help in any way. And then just, reach out if you want to connect in any shape or form.
Sounds good. Chet, thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure having you here on the podcast.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Ricardo. It's been great.
The podcast is also sponsored by Notion.so. Notion is offering 6 months for free for new users. Make sure you check out our website, thestartupevents.co.uk, to redeem this offer. This podcast is also sponsored by startupnetworks.co.uk. Startup Networks, it's an online forum where you can find all the resources you need to run your startup, from grants to investors to tips and tricks on how to be successful in your startup. This podcast is also sponsored by ODEV Tech. ODEV Tech is your premier software development partner. Make sure you check them out at odev.tech.